yourself 1 point, and if you strongly disagree, give yourself 0 points, all right? Page, and then we're going to top them up, and then I'm going to tell you where you are on the psychopathic spectrum, all right? Now,
of a political scope. I'm your host, Edward Lane. I have with me in studio this evening the Honorable Robeson Ben, Minister of Public Works. Minister, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Good evening, Edward.
His Excellency President Donald Ramotar, who's on a state visit in India, managed to secure a $50 million loan to help with the country's road networks. We've seen the congestion on the east coast of the Demerara, on the east bank, despite efforts to install or to construct a 4-lane highway. Now, the President's securing of this loan would have come in for some criticism from members of the opposition. First and foremost, Minister, I want us to first address the current situation that we have with regards to roads and the kind of congestion.
Well, thank you again for having me. As you know, we have a situation where there has been a tremendous growth in traffic, in the number of vehicles, in the number of vehicle journeys, miles traveled by commuters on our roads. This is a challenge for us. It has come about because we've had growth in our economy, a better situation for our people over all these years. We're seeing over 10,000 new vehicles coming into service, into utilization on our roads. And to respond to this challenge, we have been working at realizing some of the proposals all over the years to expand our road network, to make it more efficient, to make it safer, to make it of better use for our citizens. So the question or the issues being raised with respect to securing loans for the roads, for the expansion of the road infrastructure, and negative issues being raised, has to be seen against the background of the growth in our vehicle population. So I think that the noises being made by Mr. The member Nagamootoo from the AFC in respect of the securing of this loan is ridiculous. It is, I think, deplorable, and it is slighting. It's an insult to the people who travel on our roads every day and have the delays in times. The government and the public institutions and commercial institutions have the loss in man and woman hours, as it were, with respect to being able to efficiently do their business. And while we're trying to make up this deficit, this challenge, the rise to this challenge, we have this type of negative criticism coming from Mr. Nagamootoo, which is surprising in many ways. One would think that he must have traveled on the roads himself. He must have seen the congestion issues on the East Bank, which we're trying to set aside with the 4-lane expansion project on the way to Diamond. He must have also experienced and seen, or must have heard from the people who support him, presumably too, that the congestion is rising, increasing on the east coast of Demerara, and that there are issues too on the way to Parika, which we're trying to address by a Caribbean Development Bank loan in terms of the West Coast Demerara Road to Parika. So it's surprising that these assertions should be made, and it's frankly, in my view, an insult to the commuters who have to daily struggle through the issues with respect to the congestion in the roads too, and to the policemen and to the workers who are making efforts to make the situation safer and more efficient.
Minister, let us speak directly to Mr. Nagamootoo's comments with regards to this $50 million. The $50 million is to construct a bypass, so to speak, I understand,
yes,
to ease the congestion on the 4-lane highway. But Mr. Nagamootoo is quoted by sections of the media as describing this loan and this idea itself as another fly-by-night idea to sink Guyana further into debt. What is your response to this? I mean, this is a critical project from my understanding.
Well, this is a fly-by-night project apparently which has been in vogue for many, many decades. The bypass road from Ogle to the East Bank and eventually all the way on to the airport is a project which has been studied by the engineers, which has been proposed, which never got financing over the years with respect to agent congestion as we develop. So I don't know if fly-by-night project could be one which would have been in vogue for so long in the minds and the calculations and the studies of the engineers from way back, from the PNC time in government even, that this project, this bypass road has been an issue to be addressed. The question of a fly-by-night road too, in respect of debt, we need to remind Mr. Nagamootoo too, I think, that when he was on our side, that was on the side of the PPP civic government in cabinet, he would have joined in at a time with the Chedi Jagan government when we were spending 93 or more % of all the revenue we earned as debt servicing, for debt servicing. So for every dollar that we took in as revenue, 93 cents or more had to be used for debt servicing. This situation has changed dramatically over these years with a lot of hard work. The various finance ministers over the years, Jack Dio, now Ashley Singh, worked at this problem along with the various presidents over the years. We got debt relief, we work harder, we raised the production levels of our country in terms of rice, gold, other products, and the economy performed better, or people were able to be more disciplined and productive at work. And now, today, I think we are spending less than 10% of every dollar earned as debt servicing. Less than 10% of every dollar now is being spent for debt servicing. So I would posit that there's a long way to go between the less than 10% to the 93 or more % when Nagamootoo was a member of the cabinet. And when he should get some accolades too for working initially to achieve the result eventually in respect of the performance of the economy and the benefits that redound to ourselves as a result of fiscal, financial prudence, budgeting prudence, and recognizing the hard work of our people. So the question that needs to be answered in some retrospect is, why would Nagamootoo now be turning his back also on his own contributions towards this result, because he was a member of the initial cabinets which worked at this problem, and why should he now be turning his back on a result which he contributed to positively? He has had, I would suggest, a certifiable success in the early cabinets with respect to this matter. He supported the position, so why would he be denigrating the result we have now, and why would he be turning his back on his own successes? It may suggest, one would suggest that there is the politics, the perhaps rank grab or wanting to grab or get into power by any means necessary, and the kind of opportunism that goes along with this. And I would say it's sad. It's sad. In fact, it's tragicomic that Nagamootoo himself would turn himself 180 degrees around on these matters with respect to our country's development, where he, too, in the early stages made a positive impact in terms of turning things around from the early days.
But Minister, looking at the article, reading the article, one may very well get confused. Confused with the fact that at one point in the story,
yes,
it is said that this idea has been around for a number of years. Mr. Nagamootoo himself in this very article,
yes,
recently, and I quote,
he contradicts himself by saying it is needed. He says these projects are needed. The road is needed, and the ferry that is associated with the line of credit loan from India, that they're needed, but somehow he comes back to say that they're fly-by-night. That they're fly-by-night, meaning that they're not properly considered, they're whimsical, they haven't been studied or properly thought out. And that is where I say that it's the article itself, its presentation in the newspaper is very contradictory, and perhaps is an effort by Nagamootoo himself to get in the slipstream and piggyback on the recognition, I guess, that our President Ramatar has gotten in India and the success he has gotten with his engagement with Prime Minister Modi with respect to this significant project, these significant projects.
But again, Minister, I just want us to quote from the article so that we can examine the contents of this. It said too that it's this Indian loan is deja vu. Seems so wrong for Guyana. What could lead to that conclusion?
I don't know where one could take this position. What I would want to point out and to remind viewers is that we did have, for the Cricket World Cup, a stadium built at Providence on the east bank of Demerara, which, when it was being built with Indian experts, technicians, and some workers, along with our own workers, there were visceral comments, critiques, cuss out, and even with respect to the project, whether it will ever be finished, how long it will last, whether it will be any good. We had lots of terrible commentary as this project was being built. Not different from what we're having now with almost everything that we're doing. But I would like to point out that, one, we did finish the International Cricket Council standards, the Providence Stadium, that it was done as a joint partnership project with India, who financed this project, that we were able to host and enjoy International World Cup cricket matches at Providence. Very exciting too, I remember them very well. Malinga and others performing on the pitch. And that today, this Providence Stadium is a landmark edifice, facility too, that is being used not only for sporting events, but for cultural events, that is being enjoyed and appreciated, and well loved and appreciated by all Guyanese. By all Guyanese, I would think. I think Mr. Nagamootoo has to be reminded of this project when he swings by on the East Bank by Providence, that it was an Indian finance project, that we Guyanese engineers and workers worked together to realize this project, that the Indian Vice Premier came here and opened up the project with us. I was in the slipstream too. I had just become a minister and was very happy to be along when it was opened. And I have to pay some attention to the efforts of Minister Anthony Javier and others who were before me in terms of setting this project together and doing the project execution and the oversight with respect to the project. But everybody loves the Providence Stadium. And people of all walks of life, all Guyanese enjoy the stadium. And I would suggest that this criticism now being made with respect to this road project and this ferry project, like many other criticisms along, fall along in the same basket of criticisms that we got when we were building the Providence Stadium.
It is the same kind of issue too, with Mr. Nagamootoo even describing the expansion of the Cherry Dragon International Airport as fly-by-night. So, and this is another idea that would have been around for quite a while.
Well, frankly, no. Being around only in, I would say, from all my knowledge, in terms of the experience of the PPP civic government from 1992, our efforts to get South African Airways to come to Guyana and to expand our connectivity with respect to South Africa, South America, onto North America, and in the Caribbean region. I would say that this project has been more one generated out of this PPP civic administrations over these years since 1992. And it is a response to the growth in international air travel. We have larger aircraft. They are long-haul aircraft. They carry more people. They require more room for landing. Our airport was maxed out in terms of the building and in terms of the length of the runway and its end area safety. We recall the Caribbean Airlines problem that we had with an aircraft running off the end of the runway. Granted that they landed long, but it was indeed necessary that we discovered and we worked out that we needed an expansion of the Chedijagan International Airport, runway length, and a new facility, a new building. One would go into the building even today and would see, even though we spent some, I think 8 or 9 years ago, monies in terms of expanding the outgoing areas, that it is now too small and inefficient, even when you have just 2 or 3 aircraft on the ground, arriving at fairly at the same time. And so to make it more efficient, for us to get lower airfares, which we all desire when we want to visit or have our family from the diaspora coming, this airport has to be expanded. It has to be expanded so as to propel, energize our economy going forward with respect to tourism, with respect to overflights, with respect to landing some other countries on long-haul charters or routes. Those are the things we have to respond to. And so this is very important. I would want to recall that Mr. Gerhard Ramsrup, a senior AFC member, had sat in this very room some years ago when they were criticizing extremely virulently the airport project, and suggested that we should not worry, we should abandon Chedijagan International Airport at Timeri.
That's during the corruption debate.
During the corruption debates. And that we should go over the river, over and up the river on the Demerara at Sand Hills, and we should build a completely new airport there. And I pointed out, even there and then, that we're spending 150 million United States dollars, a little more than that, on this Chedijagan International Airport, with 138 million coming from China Exim Bank loans. That if we were to abandon CGIA Timeri, we would have to replicate all of the infrastructure, the tower, the runway with its extensions, with new buildings completely over on the Sand Hills side. We would have to build new roads on both sides of the river. We would have to build a new bridge over the Demerara River to access this new airport. And that the cost of it would be 5 or 6 or more times than what we would have been spending now, for which we had loans for the CGIA International Expansion Project. So the idea then was ridiculous as it is now still. And I'm surprised that the AFC still persists in its attacks on this project. I think they are being left standing alone in this debate. The latest discussions I've seen and had or read of with respect to Mr. Harmon, who is the APNU lead on infrastructure, suggests that he recognizes the need for the airport expansion project, both in its runway expansion or runway lengthening and in a new terminal building. That's what we last heard from him. So his position has changed. Apparently the AFC position has still not changed, and they want us to spend 5 or 6 times more than we may ever be able to get by way of loans to build a new airport by trying to build it somewhere else. And that is where, indeed, if they ever come to power now under their leadership, that will run into debt which will be unsustainable with respect to how we run our economy.
But there were some criticisms as well from Mr. Nagamootoo with regards to why the government would have taken the loan from China with regards to this airport, about China having money and the government could not resist and so on. Could you clarify and give some perspective to the loan that the government would have secured with regards to this airport?
The considerations for a new airport came up under the Jagdeo administration in discussions, in forced runs at costings with respect to its imperatives. The question of the loan revolves around those who will want to grant us lines of credit at advantageous rates in terms of the interest for the project. We had just about that time, I think it's in late 2012, a China CARICOM summit, which was a time-bound event in respect of the CARICOM countries, of which Guyana is a member, having to put projects towards the Chinese delegation, which was headed by a Chinese vice premier, to this China CARICOM summit, to be able to access funds for projects. The level of financing required for the project under all the project portfolios and opportunities we had only existed under the lines of credit we could have gotten with China. And so naturally, and one would be silly to have tried to do anything otherwise, we accessed the Chinese loan. We said to China, we have this project here. This is why it's critical. We want to enter a relationship with you in terms of the financing. And naturally, of course, a Chinese company would be brought into the picture in respect of the feasibility studies and building of the project. So naturally, the level of the sums of money which were available and the timing over which we had to come to decision had to be addressed, and it could only be addressed by the China Exim Bank loan. It could not have been accessed under any other loan arrangements that Guyana had at this time. It was a natural resort that we had with respect to the matter.
But, Minister, aren't you surprised at these kind of criticisms? I can recall President Ramutar would have made available documentation for quite a number of projects. We did.
There's a suggestion where Mr. Nagamootoo talks about lack of consultation. They've been saying from time to time no information, and so in the fact of the matter, the President Ramutar met with the opposition members, provided details on these projects. Each member of parliament was provided with a big stack of documents on the Chedi Jagan International Airport project and other projects for their perusal, their consultation, their referencing. They wanted to find out anything. They've had opportunities in the National Assembly in terms of intervention with respect to answering questions on the projects. These have all been provided. And so this continuous misleading effort which is being suggested that there has been no consultation, that there has been no provision of information is really a sad position and is mischievous. It can only be considered to be mischievous now. And worse, and this is what Nagamootoo has to answer for, if there is some acknowledgement that we need to provide better safety, better efficiency, a lower fare structure for travelers traveling on our planes coming to our airport, that this CGIA project was indeed necessary, how is it, he needs to answer to, how is it that he, along with the other opposition members, the other persons in the two parties and the opposition benches, approved the mobilization advances for this project in 2013. They approved it in the 2013 budget to the sum of 20.62 million United States dollars as a 15% mobilization advance for the project. So they approved the project then. They acknowledged that Guyana was being given sums of money by the people of China with respect to assisting our development on soft concessionary loan terms to help us energize and develop along. And then they turned back in 2014 and they cut out all the money for the project. How can you explain it? How can one explain this kind of behavior? The only explanation I would suggest is that it's anti-development, it's anti-people, it's anti-Guyana. It represents a continuing attempt to throw our economy into turmoil and to set us back, to throw the political and social spheres we have in disorder. And perhaps they hope by doing all of these things to pave the way for power for themselves. But if this continues, and if it succeeds, which I doubt that it will, in any event, they'll have to be prepared to rule over the ruins. Because if they continue with these efforts, I would remind that government spending is an extremely large portion of energizing of inputs into our economy. And if there's a slowdown in government expenditure by this, by the efforts of these hatchet men in the opposition benches in the parliament, that our country, our economy suffers, we'll start to slide back and we'll go progressively, slightly back into ruining something that we inherited in 1992, that we fixed since then, and that I am sure no Guyanese would ever want to go back to those days. To those days of ruination and dislocation and capital flight of people, a shrunken economy, and a situation which presented doomsday scenario for our country and for our people.
Minister, I don't want to belabor the point, but I want to come back again briefly to the 50 million US Indian loan. And one of the projects you mentioned is a new ferry. This is a new ferry that will be operating in the northwest, from Georgetown to northwest. We all know the troubles that the current ferry has. Now, we have to see this in the context, though, of other efforts for Amerindian communities that were attacked, because we've had the Amerindian Development Fund, we've had the hinterland airports, etc., etc.
Yes, well, the ferry project, one of the ferries we use to the Northwest District to Port Kaichuma right now is older than myself, and I consider myself to be quite old. In 1971, as an 18-year-old, I went on the North Coast to the Northwest District, and the experience then was indescribable. It remains the same today. We have brought in the Kimbia, and it alternates with the North Coast to Comacca on the fortnight to the Northwest District. The fact of the matter is that the ferries are old, their accommodation, their comfort, the ergonomics of operating the ferries are quite poor. It doesn't match any standards that we would like to have, which is why we've been saying for a number of years that we want to replace this ferry. And we have been looking all the time for opportunities for a replacement of these ferries. The one other significant point with the ferry system to the Northwest District is that it takes 24 or more hours for the ferry to travel from Georgetown to Port Kaichuma or to Comacca. We anticipate, and our calculations revolve around halving the travel time for the ferries. The design we have proposed, the design we proposed to the Indians, and this is not a fly-by-night project. They are the marine designs, the marine specifications, and all those things which have been provided a long time ago to the Indian government. Those specifications require that we get a ferry that moves at 16 to 23 knots, 23 or 24 knots, to have the time that people would have to take to go to the Northwest District, and to give greater opportunity for greater volumes of cargo and passengers to travel in comfort and over a lesser period of time.
I mean, Minister, I have seen, I can speak from experience with the comfort. I've been traveling for years on the Malali. I'm from Essequibo, right? And recently, only last weekend, I would have traveled on one of the new ferries.
Yes.
And the level of comfort.
Well, this is what we desire for our people. This is no longer the 20th century, this is the 24th century. And we want to at least have the basic 24th century accommodation for marine transport. And we would like to see all Guyanese accessing the same levels of comfort in the transportation system that our Amerindian people who still live the lives most at risk in our country would be able to benefit and would be able to access the opportunities that everyone else has for their development. And so the Northwest Ferry is a critical infrastructural project. We have spoken about it many times in Parliament. A perusal of the Hansard should show how much this topic has come up.
I mean, the government was criticized at some points for this.
Yes, yes. The emplacement of a new Northwest ferry, modern ferry, would see us moving some of the other assets onto the Berbice River and restoring a Berbice River ferry service to Ibini at least, which has not happened in decades. In fact, it ended since in the 1980s. We will restore that service. We intend to make a run just now on the Berbice River with respect to the Berbice River service, but we have been progressively improving the services, and we expect that all Guyanese will develop and grow together.
Minister, but are you seeing a trend here? You had the Amerindian Development Fund. I asked you this a bit earlier.
Yes.
But now the ferry, you have had the hinterland airports.
Well, the interventions by the hatchet men, they used to say that they were scissors men. I would accord the term hatchet men to them now in the Parliament, given the experience of the 2014 budget debate and its resultant. The experience has been that the aerodromes which are required for Amerindian development for the supported indigenous and hinterland communities, the monies for the aerodromes was cut. The monies for the Amerindian Development Fund were cut. Now there's a suggestion that perhaps this ferry would also be another target for the scattershot from the benches of the AFC in the person of Mr. Nagamootoo. But it gives a lie to their expressions where they said they have the people's interests at heart. It gives the lives to where they say that they are genuinely concerned with the development of our people all over our country. It gives to the lie to all these contrite expressions which they make with respect to wanting to properly develop our country. What it really says in stark truth is that they have a reckless approach to the major issues which concern the development of our country, and their really only interest is getting into power by any means necessary. What happens next, I'm not sure that they really care about, in spite of their assertions otherwise.
Minister, I want to move you to another topical issue that came up in the past few days, and that has to do with the UK's call for President Ramotar to end the prorogation of Parliament and for Parliament to reconvene. There are talks about Guyana being referred to the Commonwealth Ministerial Action Group. First and foremost, we have had discussions in the past about the constitutionality of the President's action. I wonder how is it exactly Guyana will be referred to this Commonwealth Ministerial Group when the actions of the President are constitutional?
Well, it's surprising to some extent the assertions which are being accorded to His Excellency Andrew Eyre, the Commissioner, the British High Commissioner to Guyana. It is a truth, a fact indeed, that the prorogation of the Parliament is a device, is a resort that could only be exercised by the President out of the Constitution with respect to the National Assembly, with respect to the Parliament. So I'm surprised at the assertion that the president's action could be deemed as unconstitutional by the British High Commissioner. We have had good relations with the British government and with its representatives here. It appears as though they seemingly want to put some pressure on the government and the president with respect to the actions. The actions, I think all Guyanese would have thought, or the majority in any event, would have thought were necessary to give the country breathing space, because the parliament had more or less become a laughing stock, a circus, and we, in fact, were making something of what those four-legged animals we call, the four-legged animals, those beasts of burdens we call. We are making that ourselves in the parliament for good reasons on our side, I guess, and bad reasons on the other side. So there is a constitutional resort. It is lawful and legal. Any testing of it in the courts will dispel any doubts the British High Commissioner may have. It perhaps needs to be studied more in terms of his assertions too. We would like to, we would also accord that British constitutional practice has to be given a high status, that it has a long tradition, hundreds of years, and that we need to take lessons too from them. But here, I think too, in this case, we need some respect. We need some respect. Britain itself, the United Kingdom, does not have a written constitution. It has constitutional practices. It has constitutional traditions. But unlike us, it doesn't have a written constitution. So maybe a read of our constitution, to review it again, perhaps, better advice on the part of the High Commissioner may help. I'm sure he and the other ABC countries are friends of Guyana, and unwittingly they may be going into a trap of not understanding what is happening here, and perhaps maybe giving the British Foreign Office the wrong impression, having lost the plot of what is happening in the country. The fact of the matter is that the Parliament, given the one-seat majority of the opposition, has turned into a forum in which every resort to destabilize the government, to destabilize proper parliamentary practice, to denigrate the efforts of the government to make it hapless and hopeless and non-functioning, and also, as I said, to apply the hatchets to important development projects. That is what has been happening in our country. And I'm sure Mr. Andrew Eyre, UK High Commissioner, are taking a serious review and consulting on this matter with our Foreign Minister, in whose stead I stand for sometimes now and again when she's out of the country, may see this matter in different light. There has been the suggestion of our referral to the Commonwealth Ministerial Group and NISMA Action Group with respect to this matter. I'm sure we can give all the appropriate information for their understanding of this if it ever does come to that. I am sure, I think some attention has to be made to President Ramatar's statements with respect to this matter. President Ramatar, with great deliberation, stated his options with respect to actions intended in the Parliament, which would be consequent or impending as a precursor to no confidence vote. He stated his options, and those options are constitutionally allowed for in our Constitution. He exercised the option. He advised when he exercised the option to the ABC grouping and to all others who had a direct interest in the matter too. And he advised the nation as to his exercise of the options. So I think a review of this matter by Commissioner Eyre would allow him to be in a better position to advise the for an office on the real situation in the country, and that the one-seat majority is being used in the parliament for undemocratic, anti-development actions, the anti-money laundering and the countering financial of terrorism bills, the issues in relation to the no confidence motion, the cutting of all of the budgets, all these issues would indicate that the actions in Parliament from the opposition benches can only be factually considered to be anti-national, anti-development, and designed or will result in, unwittingly, I'll grant them that position, can only result in our sliding back into distress and disturbances and problems. Not good for a country's sustainable economic development.
You mentioned a number of things there, not supporting the anti-money laundering, and of course the opposition making it absolutely clear that, look, we are not talking, and if you reconvene Parliament, we're going to bring in a confidence motion.
Yes.
But there is no call from the British High Commissioner for the opposition to ensure good sense prevail.
No, I'm not sure. I'm not aware of the top at the moment that this has been made by them in clear statements. I think there was a statement sometime that all parties should try to dialogue to bring about a useful, sustainable result. But I would say, given the fact that the President has pronounced that early in this year, I guess with some immediacy, the Parliament will be recalled. Naturally, too, because we have to go to a budget. The budget has to be read in March and concluded in April. So one way or the other, the Parliament has to be recalled, I believe, somehow by March or somewhere about there, latest, for our, as constitutionally required, for our having a budget presented in Parliament. Depending on what may or may not happen with the budget, we may immediately get another prorogation or a dissolution, in fact, of the Parliament, and then we go into elections, if not sooner. But these are options which the President, based on advice and in his own wisdom, will pronounce on and will act on, and he has been very patient. I'd say, I'm sure we would all like to thank him for the stressless holiday season we've just come through with respect to matters in and coming out of the Parliament. Though I know some of our people, our lawyers, are working hard, and our governance people are working hard with respect to issues being brought up in the courts almost on a weekly basis.
But Minister, a statement attributed to the British High Commissioner says, and I quote, "Without a parliament, there is no parliamentary oversight of development assistance or anything else. Clearly, the appetite to send money to a country that has no parliamentary oversight is much reduced." Is this saying that with the President prorogation of the Parliament, there is some sinister motive of the government to utilize the funds or something?
No, no, I'm sure it's not. I'm sure it's not that suggestion. It is a truism that if you have for an extended length of time, even when the Parliament goes into suspension for its holiday period or whatever, there isn't parliamentary oversight. The reason we have had this prorogation, as has been said, the reasons are very well known and they're understandable. And in any event, the time period in which a parliament could be recalled is very short. So I don't know if the High Commissioner is perhaps overlapping or seeing the possibilities inevitable, as it were, with respect to the recall of the Parliament, because the Parliament has to be recalled in any event for us to have a national budget. So there couldn't be any. The reality is that from the first of the year, January 1st, 2015, until the budget is read, the government, the Minister of Finance, can only spend 1/12 of the current account budget with respect to expenditures of the government. You cannot spend anything more than that. That has always been the case, and that is what is constitutionally required, and it cannot be exceeded. So in any event, there could be no expenditure over 1/12 of the total current account budget for the year in any month until the reading of the budget. So there could not be anything sinister. It couldn't happen. The only other expenditures would be rollover projects which would have come over from 2014 into 2015. This is normal from one year to the next. You have rollover projects which continue. If you stop spending on rollover projects, our economy gets constipated. People don't get work. You start to lose work. Building projects fall away, die. People can't build houses fast enough. You may have to start laying off people, not only in the commercial areas, but at the level of the government if you don't spend the monies. But the expenditures are defined in the budget, and it's clear for anyone to see on review or advice or on consultation too, including for the High Commissioner of the United Kingdom.
Minister, my final question. Having listened to what you said in terms of should the Parliament be recalled, the National Assembly reconvene, and the possibility exists you can go to that prorogation or there can be elections.
Dissolution and election.
How confident are you of the PPP being successful in fresh elections, bearing in mind all sorts of allegations that are being leveled against the government?
The allegations are basically unfounded. They stay in the realm of mere allegations. Since we had and you mentioned it, the corruption debates, there has not been any single charge with respect to corruption at the level of government projects or issues arising out of the execution of government project that has been brought by the opposition in reality that is credible to any court of law or to any place or to the Parliament. It has not been brought. There have been all kinds of accusations in the Kaicho News, in the social media, in the Starbuck News, questions raised and issues raised. So there isn't a smoking gun. There is no gun. There have been the continuing efforts to denigrate our efforts, to make us look bad, to harass us, to make us give up hope and spirit in respect of the struggle, the energy we have had in developing our country. Guyana's development trajectory has been exemplary since 1992. We have brought Guyana from below the zero line to a point now where there is growth, 6% at least. And that 6% is what we can count. There may be hidden growth that we have not been able to accord. 6% at least for the last 7 or 8 years in Guyana, something which has never occurred in the history of our country. People want to stop this, and the only way they think at the political level and the opposite benches that you have to stop this to make us fail, to get us out. And this is without wanting to be, well, tooting our own whistle too much, being too euphoric and so on about the issue. We believe that our successes on the ground have been clear for all to see. We have brought our country along with prudent management through our various presidents and prime ministers and ministers of the government. Our record is clear. Our success is clear. We have managed the economy well. The husbandry, the good husbandry of our country continues under Ramotar. We would only want to see the best for all of our people. Good life, a better life for all, a better life than we ourselves have had for our children and for future generations. And so we know that we have to go there. We've always been harassed and harried We've had no fire, slow fire. We've had the terror campaigns, the shootings and the killings of women and children and other. We've had all kinds of other issues, but we think that with hard work, with judicious campaigning, with a discussion of people on all sides, with again reaching out to people on all sides of the political, the ethnic, the cultural, the religious spectrum, reaching out to all of those people to tell them, join in with us. Join in with us in this wondrous task of developing our country, and that we can do it together. We believe that we are good managers of our economy. Of course, we have challenges, reduction in rice prices, reduction in gold prices, the struggle in sugar, many of our people coming back and having to be reabsorbed into our economy as a result of declining fortunes in the Caribbean and other places. We are dealing with these challenges, and we want people to join with us so as to succeed along with us, that no grouping, racial, ethnic, cultural, religious, should stand on the sidelines and gesture, as they say, when they can join with us and progress to develop. So on the strength of all of that, and with good work, good sincere work, with integrity and explanations, I think that we can do well in the elections. And I reach out the hand now, without appearing to campaign, to ask people to look dispassionately at our work, to look dispassionately at our efforts, to look dispassionately at all the things we have done to bring our country along to the point where we are having unqualified successes with respect to the development of our economy, the improvement in life, living and livelihood and longevity of our people, living longer all over the country. And once we're able to give this message over, once we're able to continue the frank and sincere discussion with our people, I believe we will do much, much better than the last round.
Thank you very much, Honorable Robeson Ben, Minister of Public Works, for joining me this evening. Of course, our discussions were centered on the $50 million loan from India that will see the bypass road from the East Coast to the East Bank, as well as a ferry to service the northwest area. And of course, we had some discussions on the comments made by the British High Commission in Guyana with regards to the prorogation of the 10th Parliament. Minister, again, I want to thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
And I want to thank you very much for joining us at home. Have a good rest of the evening.